Even as a child, Alexander saw meaning where others saw only a flower. Guided by Aristotle, Alexander learned that true power begins in the mind, long before it reaches the battlefield. When he first saw the fierce black horse, fear filled his eyes, yet destiny stood waiting beside him. With quiet courage, Alexander faced his fear, and the wild horse bowed to his calm and fearless spirit. King Philip proudly placed his hand on his son's shoulder, showing the world that a true leader had begun to rise. Aristotle taught him that skill is shaped through patience, as Alexander learned the art of the spear. Under his father's watchful gaze, Alexander faced uncertainty with steady hands, proving courage grows even in silence. Olympias spoke to her son with quiet concern, knowing that the path ahead would shape him into more than just a prince. With a bright smile, Alexander rode his horse toward the training grounds, eager to prove himself among the other young nobles. There, he met another boy in the sparring ring, and under Aristotle's watchful eye, their rivalry quickly turned into something more. Exhausted and covered in dust, the two boys sat on a stone wall laughing together. Next morning, they were sparring again, each pushing the other to grow stronger with every strike. Aristotle guided their minds as well as their bodies, showing them maps and teaching them how strategy could win a battle before it even began. Together, they climbed a quiet hill, and with a firm handshake they understood that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. In the days before his trial of readiness, Alexander studied tirelessly, determined to prove he was prepared for real combat. That evening, he and Hephaestion watched the sunset from a balcony. The next day, Alexander gave his orders on the training field with clear confidence. Later, he walked beside his father through the courtyard, nervous but unshaken. Before the gathered soldiers and generals, Alexander presented his plans with flawless precision. King Philip folded his arms and asked if any man dared object, but the silence spoke louder than any voice. With armor shining and a proud smile, Philip declared that if no one objected, it was time to march and prepare. He placed his hand on Alexander's shoulder and shared quiet words of strength, passing more than approval. Then Philip spoke with his generals, and when he gave Alexander the final word, the young man accepted command. At the gates, Queen Olympias held her tears, but Alexander reassured her with a calm promise that he would return. Moments later, he marched at the front of his army for the first time and ready for the unknown.
Forward!
On the battlefield, he moved without hesitation, guided by every lesson he had trained for since childhood.
By your command.
When the battle ended, he looked upon the fallen and felt the weight of war until Hephaestion reminded him he was not alone. The gates of Macedon open once more, and Alexander returns home a rising star, greeted by cheers and admiration. General Attalus steps forward, whispering doubts into King Philip's ear while pretending to honor him. During a royal toast, Attalus raises his cup with a
to the true heir of Macedonia,
claiming loyalty to the true heir, wounded by words sharper than any spear. And Queen Olympias reminds him that destiny is never decided by the tongues of cowards. With resolve reforged, Alexander chooses calm over fury and decides to speak to his father. Meanwhile, King Philip debates Attalus behind closed doors, both men hiding daggers behind diplomacy. Alexander enters mid-argument, and Attalus leaves with a glare that carries both insult and warning. Philip softens, placing politics aside, and walks with Alexander to finally speak, father to son. But from the shadows where honor fears to walk, a hidden assassin emerges, quiet as night and deadly as fate. King Philip falls, robbed of breath by a strike he never saw coming, and history gasps with him. Holding the man who taught him strength, and for the first time, even greatness trembles. Later, he kneels beside Philip's covered body, whispering a farewell that kings are never taught how to speak. The funeral march begins, streets lined with silent sorrow, people bowing as the weight of a kingdom presses onto the shoulders of a grieving son. Olympias, consumed by fire rather than tears, ensures that Attilus's betrayal will not stain Macedon twice. Far from the palace, Attilus stands alone beneath a fading sun, unaware that this horizon will be his last. Soldiers approach from every side, and the light reflects across his face like a judgment written by the gods. He chooses no fear, no plea, only silent acceptance, for even traitors meet destiny on their feet. His final image fades into white, swallowed by the consequence he created with his own ambition. And at dawn, before the world can take another breath, Alexander is crowned. He wastes no time. The earth shakes beneath marching soldiers as he rides at the front. At the shores of the unknown, Alexander and Hephaestion stand side by side. The fleet sails toward new worlds, and the ocean becomes their road, not their barrier. Alexander and Hephaestion study the strategies once whispered by Aristotle, ready to test theory against reality. Across blazing sands, they finally meet the vast Persian army, a sea of shields and spears stretching into forever. Two worlds stare at each other in silence, each believing the gods stand with them until the ground itself demands the first move. With unwavering purpose, Alexander charges forward like a man who was never meant to walk, only to conquer. King Darius watches in disbelief as the Macedonian line tears through his strength and fear guides his hand to retreat. Victory reshapes Alexander, no longer a boy of dreams, but a man who carries the weight of nations. Seeking silence after chaos, he washes his hands in an oasis while his faithful steed drinks beside him. And beneath starlight, he and Hephaestion unfold their map once more, knowing the world is not finished. Alexander led his army higher and higher into the frozen mountains, their horses climbing toward clouds as snow painted the earth like white marble. Soon, they descended from ice to rolling green hills that stretched to the horizon, where the grass danced like waves and the distant peaks still wore crowns of snow. There, riders in colorful turbans approached with respect, and Alexander dismounted, greeting them with a humble bow. From among them stepped Roxanne, not introduced, but recognized as if their hearts had met long before their eyes ever did. They walked beneath trees dressed in pink blossoms, petals falling around them like blessings whispered by the wind.
I vow my heart to you.
Under a night sky filled with stars brighter than any crown, they spoke their vows. But destiny does not bend for love, it only pauses, and the pause ended when Alexander said farewell. He rode again into the unknown, snow roaring around him as Hephaestion rode beside him, bound by loyalty stronger than blood. From frozen mountains they entered thick jungles where every step was a battle with nature. There he met a foreign king whose name history barely whispers, but whose wisdom matched Alexander's fire. They formed alliance not by conquest, but by respect. Soon, rain turned the battlefield into rivers of mud. Yet the army marched on. At a cliff overlooking a land no map had ever drawn, Alexander paused with his black horse. Later, at base camp, he sat on the ground beside his horse, armor removed. But fate is cruel to legends. Hephaestion fell ill at sunset, his skin cold, his breath heavy, and Alexander's greatest fear finally had a face. Through the night, he remained at his friend's side, refusing to look away. But no king has ever defeated death. Alexander stood before his coffin, a conqueror brought to his knees by the only battle he could not win. In full royal armor, he walked the great hall like a man forged of stone, yet inside he carried cracks no one would ever see. At last, under a quiet night sky, wondering if victory was worth the pieces it took. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves epic storytelling. Your support helps bring more legends back to life.